run-up to the general election, we're live in some of the East Midlands' key marginal seats, and this week we're in Broxtowe. Now, it's a fairly peaceful scene here at Attenborough Nature Reserve near Nottingham, but do not let that fool you. This is a political battleground, and slugging it out in this highly marginal seat is Conservative candidate Anna Soubry, who narrowly won this seat at the last election. Nick Palmer is the Labour candidate who spent a decade as Broxtowe MP before Anna Soubry took the seat from him. Stan Hepstenstall is here from the Liberal Democrats, and so too is David Kirwan from the Greens. UKIP's Frank Dunn can't join us, but we do have an interview with him. And we would like to hear from you too, so you can tweet your comments or your questions for our guests. But to get us started, let's take a look at those vital issues here in Broxtowe with our political reporter, Peter Saul.
For the past few years here in Broxtowe, it's been gridlock. And in one of the tightest marginals in the East Midlands, transport is pushing other issues into the slow lane. The Labour-run City Council announced phase 2 of the Nottingham tram back in 2011, but it's been beset by delays and is now running well behind schedule. It's also become a key concern for many voters. Broxtowe is a classic Labour Conservative battleground. The Tory Defence Minister, Anna Soubry, had a majority of just 389 at the last election, and Labour's Nick Palmer is again contesting the seat he first took in 1997 and eventually lost in 2010. The serenity of Attenborough Nature Reserve is a sharp contrast to the local political landscape. A place for quiet contemplation, perhaps, in the run-up to polling day.
I'm retired now, but I've got a family and I've got grandchildren, and I think it's really important to think of their future.
When I vote, I look to be planning for a fairer, balanced society. I look at things like, infrastructure, environmental issues, etc. So it would be sort of bigger picture issues.
I do care about immigration and education and the health service. When I vote, I'll take all that into consideration.
Politicians will be keen to show they're listening, and there's been plenty of attention on the local economy here. Beeston Business Park forms part of the Nottingham Enterprise Zone, with the UK's largest pharmacy chain a major employer. The East Midlands HS2 station could be built in Towton, bringing jobs and investment. But will another major development derail the goodwill of the electorate?
Well, it's no exaggeration to say that transport is, of course, a major issue here in Broxtowe, with the trams, with HS2, and whether the East Midlands hub will be based at Towton is of particular interest to people here in this constituency. Nick Palmer, are you for or against HS2?
I'm a sceptic at the moment. I feel that the political establishment has accepted too readily the idea that we need to spend £40 billion on an improved railway. I see the economic arguments. I understand why Anna Soubry is so in favour, why the councillors are so in favour, but we need, as representatives for Broxtowe, to fight our corner.
But how do voters know which way to vote for you if you're a sceptic? It sounds like you're sitting on the fence, you're not sure which way to go.
At the moment, with the package we're offered now, I would not vote in favour. I vote against.
So you'd be against?
At the moment, because we haven't got the assurance.
So you'd vote against your party then?
Yes, if necessary. It's not a party issue as far as I'm concerned.
It's a vote-winning issue or a vote-losing issue.
Whatever.
Is that why you'd vote against your party?
No, the reason that I would be prepared to vote against it, if we don't get the assurances we need, is we've just seen what happens with the tram project, which all three of us supported, which has caused 2 years of chaos. Now, this project...
A lot of people would agree with that, basically, Anna, because definitely, but obviously with infrastructure of this scale, it's impossible to offer local people guarantees that this will run smoothly.
No, I agree with you as that as well. We've got to learn the lessons from the tram. But
you can't offer guarantees to the people who've already had enough of the tram.
No, but I think these are some of the lessons we absolutely need to learn from the tram. I'm absolutely astonished, actually, to hear that the Labour candidate is not getting favour of Towton sidings, getting the East Midlands hub. I mean, this is a fantastic opportunity, not just for Broxtowe, but actually for Greater Nottingham.
Well, you say that, but Anna, just let me tell you that today a poll's come out from Comres which shows that 22% of adults polled by Comres support HS2 at current estimated costs of £50 billion. 1% of adults polled in that same poll do not see this as, 1% see it as a priority. The rest do not see this as a priority. So it's it could lose you votes in total.
I think you do the thing that but I don't know that poll. It's a national poll.
It's just come out today.
Yes, but that's a national poll. But here in Broxtowe, certainly my postbag and knocking on doors indicates to me, rightly, the Lib Dems, the Conservatives and Labour locally and with the city and with the county, we are all in favour of HS2 coming to totem sidings because we absolutely get the benefit. The trick of the MP is to make sure that residents are adversely affected.
David, let me bring you in here because you're not in favour of HS2 as the Greens, are you? Sorry, Stan, you're not in favour of this, are you?
In favour of what?
Are you in favour of HS2, the Lib Dems?
Yeah.
You are, yes.
Absolutely, totally in favour of it.
Yeah.
Because it's the way to go. You know, you go to Germany and you look at their infrastructure. You know, you've got these fantastic roads, you've got these fantastic railway systems, they've got the ICE trains. It's a pleasure to go on German railways. You've got the city centres and you see all these trams networking with each other. People don't have to buy cars in Germany.
Well, what do you say to people like Nick then?
Well, I think he's wrong. I think he's absolutely wrong. What we need is proper infrastructure for transport and everything else. That's why we're rebuilding the centre of Beeston. You know,
even though all these
people
are against it in this poll today?
I'm not going to tell you what people want to hear. I'm going to tell you what is right.
Absolutely.
And the right thing to do is to provide the proper infrastructure for our country so we can keep up with,
it's one of the great
our European
successes of the coalition, actually. I mean, we've invested in a way that's never been seen before in infrastructure, whether it's the dualling of the 453, whether it's our improvements to Midland Main Line. These are terribly
David,
important.
let's bring in what the Greens think about this, because you are against it, aren't you, HS2, as well as UKIP?
Absolutely opposed to HS2, yes. £50 billion is a huge amount of money to be spending on one project, and we would actually prefer that money to be spent on the existing infrastructure. It's important to get...
But it doesn't work.
Are you saying it's the wrong time for this project?
It's at capacity already.
It's the wrong type of investment, and it's interesting to hear that Nick has come out today and saying that he is opposed to it, and it's just the latest of a string of Labour policies that Nick is opposed to. He's not standing as an independent MP, he's standing as a Labour Party MP, and people are voting. People are voting for Labour, and Labour are actually supporting HS2. So
absolutely.
I'm not interested in the party line on this. I will go with
on
what's
various
important
issues,
to
Nick,
Broxtowe.
you're not interested in their party line.
The electorate will be interested to hear that, won't they?
So you would, let's get this clear. So when the bill went through Parliament, you would have voted against the bill. We need to be clear. You would have voted against the HS2 bill.
Because of the
That's all right. We just need to know whether you would have voted for, against or abstained. So you would have voted against the HS2 bill.
Without the assurances that you have failed to get for Broxtowe.
What do you mean? What assurances?
The assurances on the amount of disruption that will be caused, on the relief...
Let me just bring in
the bill is the principle.
Let me bring in what one of the viewers has tweeted
but
to
you've
us.
let them down on the details too.
Let's bring in what one of the viewers has tweeted us this morning to say that Broxtowe has the worst government settlement in the country. Will your candidates here address that in this Parliament?
That's actually true.
You are one of the
it is
yes, you're one of 20 councils across the country, but still you're going to take a cut of 6.4% compared to others.
Well, there's not a lot we can do about it, actually, if government comes to us and says this is what... Let me tell you what we've done already, because Broxtowe Borough Council is currently run by a Labour Lib Dem coalition, and the leader of the Lib Dems has already been down to London to talk to the relevant ministers about this issue and to ask for a reconsideration of it, and that is ongoing now. When I am the MP, I will further
a cut of 6.4% is a considerable cut compared to some councils where the average is 1.8%. It's going to be
totally unfair.
Hang on
at all.
Oh yes, hang on a moment.
Well, what do you think of this cut?
Well, if I'm ever allowed to tell you, I will. Notts County Council, by the way, got less than 1%. I mean, it's actually really interesting that, in fact, the three political parties at Broxtowe came together and agreed the budget. No cuts in services, no compulsory redundancies.
I was chairing the meeting. I was chairing the meeting as the mayor, and it was absolutely unanimous. Every political party agreed the budget.
Yeah. And the thing is that it's the formula. And I remember when David Watts, who's a Lib Dem, who was the leader of Broxtowe Council, taking him down quite properly, making the case that the formula, which is a long-standing formula under the last government,
but these are hefty cuts, aren't they, to the council?
Well, no, they've actually been able to manage it remarkably well.
On this issue, as with HS2, as with housing, when there's a conflict between the constituency interest and the party interest, the current MP always goes with the party.
OK, well, one party which is also hoping to make a massive impact here in Broxtowe is UKIP. And as I said earlier, Frank Dunn, their candidate, can't be with us today. But this is what he had to say.
One of the things I say to you is don't underestimate me. For all through my life, I've overcome certain challenges and really worked hard to overcome those difficulties. I've put a real lot of effort into this because I firmly believe I stand a fighting chance. And let me tell you why I'm doing this. I'm not doing this for any kind of financial gain. I'm a successful businessman. I'm doing this, putting my own money into it and my own time into it because I believe in giving something back. All we're suggesting is we need an Australian-based point system where the best and the most talented come into this country. And nobody says a word against Australia. Nobody says a word against Canada. You know, what surprises me is because we put our head above the parapet and say we need to address and look at this issue, all of a sudden, all the other parties now have an interest in immigration and controlling immigration. I've just been up and down here, as I have been many, many times, and I see a large number of charity shops, fast food outlets. I see what we need in this area is we need investment. We need to get investment into local communities. We need to get real proper shops. I was speaking to people out here, and they're saying to me, this is a good town. It is a good town. It's a good town that's just lost its police station. The heart and soul of local communities has been ripped out. Let's get investment. Let's get regional investment. I'm a businessman, and I'll tell you where I sit, is I'm quite prepared to put the case to the people. And if the people say, no, we want to stay in Europe, that's great. But my view is this, let's give people a choice. It has such a big effect on every day, every part of our life. Over 3,000 laws have been passed since 2010 that directly come out of Europe. So what we're afraid of, let's give the people the choice.
And Frank Dunn also told us that, of course, he's in it to win it, as I'm sure you all are. He did point out, too, that in the last major poll here, Anna, the European election last year, UKIP came first, pushing you into third place. So this is no longer a straight race between the Conservatives and Labour.
I don't agree with that analysis. It is. And if you want to get David Cameron back into number 10, you vote Conservative. If you want Ed Miliband as your Prime Minister, you vote Labour. And it is a straight fight between the two of us. That doesn't mean to say, of course, that the other candidates obviously don't play an important role.
No, and you can't deny what UKIP polled last time, 9,500 compared to a Tory vote of 7,000.
Yes, but that was in the European election, as you'd expect to do.
Yes, that's the last major
actually,
poll.
in the last general election, it was quite interesting because UKIP actually came 5th in Broxtowe. Libs came 3rd, and then 4th with the BNP, and then UKIP. Look, UKIP, it is important, and I'm not trying to dismiss the importance of it.
Well, a lot's happened since then, hasn't it? And also the rise of the Green Party too.
Exactly, and I hope you'll be able to talk to David at some stage. But
David, realistically, what do you think of the UKIP threat?
I think UKIP are addressing some serious concerns that people have, but they are doing that by promoting fear and distrust of migrants. And I think actually what we need to do is concentrate on... You haven't
polled too well here in the past, though, have you?
We did extremely well in the European elections overall nationally. And I think we have to have smaller parties that are coming forward and actually giving a real choice to people in Broxtowe. The main parties would love to maintain the two-party status quo. And by the electoral system that we have, they're going to keep on doing that because it's so difficult.
UKIP are going to take votes off whoever they can, and they're going to take votes from Labour, aren't they?
They'll take votes from everyone. I've talked to a lot of people who are considering voting UKIP, and a lot of them are protest voters. They feel we're all rubbish.
Well, the Ashcroft polls in the marginals back in January, I think it was, showed that in Broxtowe you're slightly ahead of Anna, but that Labour have been losing out to UKIP.
Sure.
They take from both. It's interesting.
They take from both, that's right. And I think
it's only one poll, obviously there'll be more to come.
Yeah, I think that's a signal to all of us, actually. I think it's very important not to give ground on the central point that humans are human, and immigrants are entitled to the same kind of justice as everyone else.
And briefly, Stan, the Lib Dems could be losing out to the Greens. To David.
Getting back to UKIP for a second, I really do agree with Nick that I think the majority of people who vote for UKIP are voting as a protest. They're looking for an alternative person to represent them rather than Conservative or Labour. And in this particular election in Broxtowe, they have an alternative. They have an alternative in the other parties that are standing, and I think we will pick up the UKIP vote this time.
6 parties standing here in Broxtowe. Well, let's get a different view on the election from the BBC's Generation 2015. That's a panel of young voters, and one of them is very angry about one particular party that's standing here and in 2 other seats in the East Midlands.
Sarah Honeycombe's part of a new generation, an online PA and a politics graduate. She's taking a keen interest in the election, and there's one party that's only standing here in the East Midlands that she's not happy with. Justice for Men and Boys is an anti-feminist party targeting 3 marginals here, including Broxtowe. So what happens when a feminist meets the anti-feminist party? Well, first up, it's equality in the workplace.
They're less likely to get paid an equal wage to men. They're less likely to get employed. Well, academic evidence...
Academic evidence does not show that, Sarah. Well, what academic evidence shows is that there's a very small gender pay gap between the ages of 20 and 30, and it's in favour of women. The idea that women are an oppressed class is insane.
So how do you explain the gender pay gap?
It's very simple. Men and women go into different lines of work. Women typically go into lines of work that fit in with their other duties, that fit around holidays and so on.
What would you I just wanted to ask, you mentioned women's other duties. I meant when I said, like, what you consider those duties to be?
Well, I mean, perhaps duties was the wrong word, but I mean, caring for children, normal women like to care for children. At the end of the day, men and women are different. And this whole feminist, fantasy that men and women are somehow interchangeable is just nonsense, and it's leading to ruin in just so many areas of society. Men will support women as stay-at-home partners or parents, and women won't.
Well, I do know people who are supporting their male partners who are looking after the children. Those people do exist. And surely
but they're rare.
Surely the point of equality is that it can never go too far. By definition, equality can only go to 50-50. And if we get more women involved in the workplace and working those kind of hours, then men would be able to have the option to stay at home with children.
Well, can we just stay with that moment? A major driver of male suicide, but not female suicide, is unemployment. But more men than women are unemployed, and yet every government initiative that I know of to encourage people into lines of work are encouraging women.
The problem with a lot of women, getting women back into work, is A, they're looking for a part-time job, which means they're not covered by the figures that you're looking for, and B, those jobs don't exist as much, which is why we're putting funding into them. So the statistics that you're using to present your argument are somewhat disingenuous.
Sarah's undecided on who to vote for at the moment, but it looks unlikely Justice for Men and Boys will be winning her vote.
Sarah Honeycombe there from the BBC's Generation 2015, a young woman very interested in politics, but women aged between 18 and 24 are the group that's least likely to vote. So I'd like to know what your parties are going to do about that. Come to you first, David. What are the Greens going to do about this issue?
I think we need to engage as many people as possible, and that includes women and young people in the political process. And I think a lot of women are turned off from the political process because of the conduct that they see in Parliament, and I think that is something that needs to be addressed to engage people more, and also to actually reduce the voting level to 16 to engage young people, including young women, from an earlier age.
And Stanley, Lib Dems still have a problem with young voters, the students still not happy with tuition fees and the way that all worked out or didn't work out?
But it has worked out, actually. What Nick Clegg wanted to do was to give the younger generation what we had when we went off to university, and we got it totally free.
Well, how are you going to attract more young female voters?
You've changed the subject, if you don't mind me saying so. How we're going to
attract... It is the subject we're trying to talk about.
The Lib Dems are for fairness and equality in everything, irrespective of backgrounds, ethnicity, culture, everything. We want everybody to get the best out of life, and everything that we do is geared to that.
Okay, Nick Palmer?
We can't engage young people by talking to them in slogans. We have to talk to them about the issues that they're actually concerned about. So Labour's policy on guaranteeing jobs after a year of unemployment, Labour's policy of reducing tuition fees, these are things which actually relate to young people.
It's crucial that you get these voters, isn't it?
It is, and I'd like to ask younger voters out there to make a choice. whether it's for Anna or for me or for one of my colleagues, it's very important that you participate.
Well, they will, providing they've registered to vote.
Can I say that there is a way of doing that? Because I was sent an email yesterday, an email link to a website called DMob, which is de-mob.com, and it's a non-political site, and it sets out all the political arguments.
Yes, OK. They can see it on the BBC website as well. And finally to you, Anna, what would you do to attract female young voters?
I've got 23 and a 24-year-old daughters.
Are they interested in politics?
Well, one is, the other one's a bit ambivalent. But I think that the point that David makes about the conduct, I mean, personally, I think that a lot of women, whatever their age, don't like too much of the personality side of politics. We need more women to be standing as candidates. And I think the other thing, if there was one thing I would do for looking at young issues, it would be to look at mental health in particular, and especially some of those issues about
all right, well, we'll
image,
have to leave that there at the moment. Anna,
Sorry.
thank you. No, there are 6 candidates standing here in Broxtowe. Raymond Barry is the candidate standing for Justice for Men and Boys. More details on all the candidates standing here in Broxtowe and all the constituencies across the East Midlands on the BBC website. Now, some of the other news in 60 seconds with our political editor, John Hess.
There's no escaping politicians at the moment. Holidaymakers at White Post Farm near Sherwood Forest were treated to a visit from the Shadow Chancellor, Ed Balls, as the first of Labour's big guns moved into the region. Meanwhile, David Cameron was in the marginal seat of Loughborough and desperate to avoid a photo op clangor on his first campaign visit to the East Midlands. Away from the election, and Nottinghamshire police have launched a second investigation into historical allegations of child abuse. They're already looking at reports of abuse in children's homes in Nottingham. Now a second inquiry is investigating similar claims at homes in Nottinghamshire. Back with the election, and the Grantham Mayor Ian Selby, deselected as a Labour councillor, has popped up as a surprise independent parliamentary candidate for Grantham and Stamford, and has produced an equally surprising campaign video.
Oh, Cheeky Monkey says, I think I need a rose head. Rose head. What colour?
It's not known if Cheeky Monkey has any political ambitions.
Who knows, Cheeky Monkey might just have a chance. Well, John's here with me now. So, John, what do you think about what we've heard here today in Broxtowe?
You know what, Murray, I think the intensity and the passion of the debate that we've heard, especially on HS2, is a sure sign that this campaign, especially in those marginal seats like this one, that campaign is really firing up. I suspect, if the truth be known, that we've had the Easter holidays and we've had the spring sunshine. Maybe people have been distracted, but with the schools going back, I think people are going to be really engaged now, and that's going to be the key thing. OK, well, we've certainly had some of the big hitters arriving here in the East Midlands, and no wonder. What can we expect in the week ahead, John? Well, we're going to see the parties launching their election manifesto, so we'll get more detail. Labour are launching their manifesto in Manchester tomorrow, the Conservatives much later on, and then we'll get the fine detail. And there have been some concerns, though, haven't there, that people haven't actually registered to vote yet, and they've got until April the 20th to do that. Well, there's been a big campaign to try and get those that aren't registered to register, and there does seem to be an indication that that campaign is working. Up to 1 million additional people will be voting in this campaign, and that's a really, really good sign. That's great, John. Thanks very much indeed, and thanks to all our candidates who joined us today in Broxtowe. Next week, we'll